Paul, we are back after a 2 week hiatus. I think it's 2 weeks. It's been a little while since we last caught up. Um, Last year over holiday. And previous week, I think you had some problems connecting. Just the general life, I think.
That sounds like me. That sounds a lot like me. I forgot to ask, how was the holiday?
Holiday was amazing. Bali is fantastic, and it was my first holiday in 9 years where I didn't work. And I got to say, if anyone hasn't done that before, do it. It was quite refreshing.
Yeah,
It's
you
very
just said to
enjoyable.
me before the call, I feel like I haven't spoken to you in 2 weeks, and I'm like, what's happened? And I do remember making a commitment not to bother you during that time.
Thank you. My
So well
family
done.
appreciates it. My family appreciates it.
I'm sure.
Well, we are back now. Not in our usual surrounds. I'm currently in Melbourne at the airport, just coming back from the client session. But we're here now and to talk about the news that I think everyone's been talking about lately, which is the RBA has flagged this with yet another rate rise. And even the most resilient of businesses, I feel, are starting to feel it now. What are you seeing out
Um, it's really hard out there. I think retailers are cagey. You know, no one really wants to come out and say, unless you have to declare your financials. No, very few retailers will come out and say, "Hey, we're struggling." Um, but I can tell you that a lot of retail brands are struggling at the moment. Not all. There are still some growing, but that would be a rarity. Um, and I don't think we need to feel bad about that. Um, because interest rates are up 12 rate rises in a row. And again, we've got to remember why the Reserve Bank does that. It's to curb spending and curb inflation. So the response of slower spending is exactly the intended response. Um, I guess, how I feel about that generally without going into the detail is that the government caused inflation by handing out money left, right, and centre that we were told to spend and happily did, and now they're punishing us for their sins. Consumer spending problems created by government spending, in my opinion. But nonetheless, here we are. Retail's a bit tough. DJs, more bad news at David Jones. So if you're listening to this and you're an online retailer that might be down a little bit, you're certainly not alone.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I think it's an point like the it's felt like a bit like a sledgehammer though, just like coming in with like we have no other way to reduce consumer spending rather than just like increase interest rate rises or more interest rate rises, which then lead to greater cost of living pressures. I'm hearing about like successive rent increases in Sydney. Matter of fact, just spoke with like this for jobs who are internationally leaving Sydney just simply because they couldn't afford the rent there anymore. So I'm seeing a lot of these flow-on effects now coming into like fairly resilient, formerly resilient areas, even luxury, which like talking about before, even some of that, like the founder, the owner of LVMH, was formerly the richest man in the world for a very, very short period of time. But now LVMH, their shares have actually dipped as well, as demand for even luxury products seems to be declining, because it's not just an Australian phenomenon. This is something that's happening worldwide. In the US, there's interest rate pressures. Europe, I think Europe currently inflation is as high as it's been in the last 20 years, I believe. In the UK as well, incredibly high.
Turkey's not so good.
Yeah.
Turkey's over 50%.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, 60% maybe. But you're right, and that's why sort of people say, oh, well, only 30% of Aussie households have a mortgage or whatever. But you're right, rents have gone up astronomically as well for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think it's tough out there. Like, you would have been around like me in the GFC. I personally think this is harder than the GFC and going to be more prolonged, the impact on retail. So there is a procession of retailers lining up to fail right now. Unfortunately, we're seeing them drop each week, each second week. I predict that there's a couple of big ones that that are there's some worrying signs. I think just from observations, but watch this space. It's a shame because business fail, people don't get hired, people lose their jobs, people don't get pay rises when companies aren't making money, but cost of living goes up, as you point out. So tough to be a retailer for many at the moment.
And one of those things which I think about as well is that, it's also a bit of a blessing. Like, yes, it's a curse, but at the same time, there is opportunity. I always tend to try to look at things like, what's the old Winston Churchill quote? That never let a good crisis go to waste.
Oh, you love that one.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So something along that. It's like, how do you actually make the most of that? And, for me, it's like, I personally am recommending a lot of retailers to actually spend a lot of time looking at how they can actually lean up. And how they can actually use the opportunity to actually look at where the inefficiencies are in the organization and look at how do they actually make themselves more efficient. How do they cut those unnecessary costs? How do they actually go back and review their freight contracts? How do they go back and look at the logistics, look at their hire, look at their staffing, look at all these things? So look at where are those opportunities where maybe we can actually, yes, it's not great because it is going to be tough, and you never want to, it's not easy to play around with someone's job, someone's livelihood. But at the same time, this is a time where you need to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. There's tough decisions that companies need to make, particularly when it comes to expenditure that they won't make. That's fact. That's why a lot of companies aren't profitable. It's largely not their sales. It's often that they're spending money that they shouldn't be. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to get out of rent leases. It's hard to let people go. It's hard to pull back media spend when you're relying on it to hit sales. But the blessing in disguise here is that you have to, as you say, you have to do that now. And I think you're right. And I said this during COVID, if you can form these good habits now where you're running a lean ship, and my lean ship is 30% of revenue, on your operating expenses, then you'll come out the end of this a much better business. And there's a couple of brands that we work with who are doing that. They're really reining in their costs. And I know that when that revenue comes back, they're going to be like, oh, we're actually running okay with these reduced costs. And that will become their new normal. And you always think you've got to spend money until you don't. And you realize, oh, I don't have to spend this money. 9 times out of 10, you don't need to spend as much money as you are. So, that's a tough lesson to learn. But now's the time to sort of force your hand a bit and make those big calls because it's a matter of survival for some brands.
One of those areas where I think, a lot of people, have kind of been hooked on that drug, spending more and more money is definitely in the paid media. So you had a post earlier this week about that. And I think you agree more. There are a lot of brands who over the last few years have experienced rapid growth of paid media. Now, suddenly those brands have gone from being 20% MER, let's say, which is on the high side, don't get me wrong, but now at 40% MER. And some of them, due to what's recently happened, essentially numbers pushing up to like the 50 and 60% MER. Point of view. And I look at that and I go okay, well, how do you recover from something like that where you've built a business which is inherently inefficient because you have that over-reliance on paid media? What do you do?
What do you do? And I think usually when you see it's not your flight, is it, Mal?
No. My flight just got delayed, actually.
Oh, no.
This is my 4th delay today. I was delayed coming over to Melbourne.
I'm going to ask you, you're flying. I already know. So, I think when you see, to double down on that post, when you see a brand that's spending what you're talking about, let's say over 20%, you sort of raise your eyebrows a little bit and you think, oh, wow, you're spending over 20% on paid media. Gee, you must have great margins. Oh, you don't have great margins? Oh, I'm feeling I might know what's happening here. You've got a subpar product or brand. And you're getting revenue. You might be even making $1 million a month or something, but you are just throwing ads to everybody. You are throwing ads to everybody, and you are just saturating with ads until you find that needle in the haystack that wants to buy from you. And for me, I don't think good brands need to do that. Good brands are sought out by the consumer. They see an ad or they see it on a friend, and they're sought out by the consumer. So having to pay for every sale you get, or, most of the sales you get, is an indication that people are not seeking out your brand organically. And that generally means your brand might not be that great, or the product that you're selling might be the same as everybody else's. And that's a problem. Way too many brands start up and they're just like everyone else. And you ask them, oh, so how are you different? What's your wow? And it's just fluff. It's like when I started my first business and I said, oh, They're really good leather shoes. They're better than the competition, but a better price. Look, it was all made up. It was just garbage. There was no real, why should you buy from me? And I think, asking yourself now, why should customers buy from me, is a really good response. And if you've got a flaky answer, you're probably needing to spend over 20% on paid media.
This is something which niching down, and something which I believe, forever and a day, that the importance of actually niching down couldn't be any truer today. If you're really focusing on what's your value proposition and to whom as well, like exactly who are you solving the problem for, and really zeroing in on that. Rather than having products which are, we solve problems for everyone, let's actually be laser focused on that. Yeah. You raised something before where you said that a great product is one which, someone will use it and will tell their friends about it.
Yeah.
A great product is one which someone will use it and will tell other people like them who are suffering from the same thing about it. Hey, you've got this condition, use this product. You've got the same problem as I do. Hey, you've got to check this out. So how do you make sure that those people find it? I think that's what's really important now, that the opportunity here is for a lot of brands to really niche down and zero in on exactly who their customer is and what's that problem which they're trying to fix for them, and build it out in that way. That may require, cutting your media spend, sacrificing some revenue, but it could actually mean you're more efficient rather than actually having to push through and keep spending at 40, 50, 60% of your revenue on to be able to maintain revenue. What if you cut that back and zero in just on the people who really care about that? Yes, you may lose the top line, but does that actually mean that you can survive? And does it also mean that you could potentially also come up with a leaner, more efficient business at the end of this?
Yeah, I love that. And I think what's interesting is, like, most e-commerce businesses are product-based businesses. And most people buy something because they need something. Most people don't buy products because they see an ad. Most people buy products that they need. I'm going to start a new job. I need a new tie. I'm going on a holiday. I need a bag. That's commerce since the dawn of time, before ads even existed. And so I think the very fact that most brands I see these days are selling products, but they have infinitely larger marketing departments than they do product departments or design departments, speaks volumes, because people just think, I can bring anything to market, and my marketing team or my agency, they've got this. But that's not the case. And I think I always ask retailers to, you're a product-based business, you're selling products. R&D on products should never end. How can you do that with one founder running the product, running the product department? So I'd encourage brands to invest more time in product, finding winning product, and the ROI will follow, because we've seen brands working with certain paid media agencies getting a terrible ROAS of 1 to 1.5. Same agency, different client, same strategy, ROAS of 6. What's the key denominator here? It's not the agency, it's the product and the brand, that people just sort of, way too many people just putting out junk and expecting that, sales and marketing will sell that. It's not the case.
Yep. Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly. Love that.
Well, Paul, one thing which I did this week was Temu, which have really started to make they're seeing them a lot lately. How do you feel about some of these low-cost Chinese marketplaces, like coming to the market, like coming in with like very similar, obviously copycat products at a bargain price, like at a dirt cheap price, like almost an unsustainable price?
Yeah. It's funny. I had this is a weird thing to say, Mal, but I had a request to be somebody's visa sponsor from quite a large one of these companies to come into Australia. Now, these companies have their eye on Australia. Look, I mean, we should expect this, that's fine. I said to a brand today, make hay while the sun shines. Brand I spoke to today doing, I don't know, on track to do $30-40 million this year. Last year, they did 17 million. And, profit wasn't super high. So you've got to get that profit high, because make bank, as they say, while you can. You now is the time to set up generational wealth, because I'm telling you, these big players are all coming. Amazon's here. They're smashing it. They're all coming, Mal. It's going to get harder. So We should not be surprised when bigger retailers do it cheaper, which does come back to our point that we just made about if you don't have something special, you're gone in 10 years. You're not here in 10 years.
You got to build a moat. Yeah, so it's figuring out what that moat is. I think that for a lot of retailers, actually the hardest part, particularly if you don't come into it for the right reasons. You come into it because you're looking to jump on a trend. There's just something where you think, oh, I can make some money here. That's the wrong reason. Yeah. If you look to go into it, building a moat because you actually care about something, how do you use that to build that moat to find other people who actually care about the thing that you care about as well?
I think a good example of that is the product that we've been working on for about 2 to 3 years. I almost like that it's taken us so long because it's just part of the story. It's taken us 2 to 3 years to design one product, and I love that because I know we're working hard to find a product that will be almost unbeatable. And I'm glad that we didn't just generically find a similar product, chuck it out there and churn and burn, because I think that we're by taking that time, we're building a product that will last for the ages. And I had my haircut today and the barber telling me about his idea for an online business that he's been working on for 3 years. And I loved it. I didn't even ask the idea. I love the fact that you've been working for 3 years and haven't launched your store yet. I love the idea that you're getting the product right first. And I think that's the way it is. Product first, store second. He said, should I build a store? Get your product first, scale it later. Otherwise you've got nothing to scale.
But you do need to launch though. And that's something where,
we need to launch too.
we do need to launch. But that's something which a lot of people don't launch. And there's so many great ideas out there. And that's the difference between like an entrepreneur and just someone with a great idea. Yeah. Because if the idea will just sit there, but an entrepreneur will actually launch it and take it to market. Yeah, so and I speak to a lot of people as well like this who have these ideas about products by launch. It's like you're going to launch it. At some point, you need to set that point of like, at this point, we have to launch it. Otherwise, you sit on this thing and it just drags on and on and on. So it's figuring out what that MVP is as well and defining what's the MVP, the minimum viable product which we can have, before we can just go, bang, we're going to launch. I spoke to someone earlier this week, who had a really great skincare product and that was thinking about it. They were overthinking it actually. They were looking to get the funding to do this, that, and the other. And the conversation I had with them was like, why do you need all that? You've already got the product. You've already got the formulation. Just get it to market.
Build the store.
Shopify for dummies.
Build the store, right. Get it to market. I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. Just overcooking things. Sometimes simple is better. I love the MVP concept. And I think we can definitely overcook things at times. And execution is where people get let down. Everyone's, generally got good ideas, but it's 100%. It's execution where we fall over. So I think that's good advice for us as well, Mal.
Also learning quickly as well. You need to the old thing from startup land is failing fast, right?
Yeah.
If you don't launch, you don't learn.
Yeah.
Because you need to launch, and if it fails, it's fine. You learn from that, and then you go again, rather than just sitting on something and then you never get those learnings. Mal, good advice for us. Good advice for everyone here.
Are we going to launch in July?
Why not? Watch this space, guys. We will tell you all about the launch.
That's right.
Cool. Well, great to chat to you again. It's been a while, and I'll be in Sydney next week. We can do one live, actually.
Yeah, we'll do a live one. We might have a special guest with us.
That's right.
That would be fun. All right. Well, hopefully you don't get any more delays, Mal, and have a good weekend to everybody out there, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you. See you later.
See you, Mal.